This is Mimi Vu, a Vietnamese American who has been living and working in Vietnam for 14 years. Sometimes people call her a development strategist, a fundraiser. Other time, a corporate sustainability consultant with rich experience. But most of all, she is known as a well-established expert in anti-human-trafficking and modern slavery. In any role, she is committed to one goal: contributing to the development of Vietnam.
Hello and welcome back to Talk Vietnam. This is Quốc. Well, Mimi Vu, the Vietnamese American that you have met in the previous clip, she has had numerous turns in her life where she made all her important decisions completely different from what she had planned. However, those bold turns has led her to go back to the motherland, Vietnam, and she has found her true love and passion of doing great things for this country. So let's find out what she had been doing. Mimi Vu, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Great.
Well, I want to go back time a little bit. Back in the day, you were born in the U.S., Flint, Michigan, Midwest. How was the experience being a Vietnamese American who grew up in the States?
I think my experience is probably very different from other Vietnamese Americans who grew up in, say, Orange County or San Jose, any of the big Vietnamese communities. I was born in Flint, Michigan, so that's my hometown, and I grew up in a smaller, what they call bedroom community, so a small farm town right outside of Flint. That was 1,000 people, one stoplight, one intersection, and it is your typical farm town. So for me, my upbringing was very what you would call all-American. You know, very safe. We didn't lock our doors at night. My father was the town doctor. Everyone knew who we were. Everything, you know, you walked everywhere. You didn't have to worry about anything. And it was a very carefree existence. It was also before the internet, so we didn't have, we were quite isolated. So outside the house, riding your bikes through cornfields, you know, hang out on the farms. But then the second you set foot inside my house, no English allowed. We only ate Vietnamese food, only spoke Vietnamese or French.
Just a little Vietnamese space
It was little Hanoi, right? Because my parents, they are originally from the north, so the Bắc Nam Tư, 1954 Northerners. My mother is originally from Hanoi. My father is người Thái Bình. And so they're, when I say old school, they're very, very old traditional, right? So they've always been extremely proud of their Vietnamese culture and being Vietnamese. I think this is just a product also of their upbringing. And so everything, even though I grew up in the most American of American apple pie towns, there was always the belief, very, you know, out front and center, that everything that's good about us, everything that, you know, why we do well, everything is because of our Vietnamese roots. So, and then we do things to bring honor to our Vietnamese roots and our ancestors. So it was very much like a very, it was a split dichotomy. Yeah. You know, so again, you know, I'm very comfortable in small towns, all American, being the only minority, you know, in the crowd. It doesn't bother me. You know, I don't have an identity crisis. And then on the other hand, I'm also very comfortable being among, you know, Vietnamese or Asian cultures, and I don't also feel like, oh, who am I?
Do you have any problem in terms of the language and the culture and kind of conflict?
No, not really, because I think my parents were so, I mean, you have to understand, my parents are very strict. So, you know, even if like, if I would ask my mother a question in Vietnamese, or sorry, in English, or I would respond in English, you know, she'd always say like, you know, mặt của mẹ là mặt người gì, người ai, and you have to say like người Việt.
So you have to
and then she'd say, you know, thì mẹ nói tiếng gì, you know, and she's like, nói tiếng Việt. So you're just constantly being reminded. My mom would teach Vietnamese cooking classes at the junior high school for, you know, housewives in my town. We'd have like a summer parade, you know, through town every year. It's called the Old Fashioned Days Festival, and my father's medical office would sponsor a float. And it's right around 4th of July. I still have pictures of it. And my sisters and I would be on the float wearing áo dài, something that I absolutely adored about my upbringing because I didn't have to choose one or the other. We didn't have to hide anything. You know, there's typical moments where, and I think this is also common for immigrant children, like your mom sends you to school with like non-American food, right? You know, so I was bringing like chả giò and cơm chiên or whatever, and you're like, oh my God, it smells, you know?
Yeah.
But then my friends would be like, oh, that looks so good. You're so lucky, because they have like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. So those are just the little things. And you know, at the time, you don't appreciate it, but of course, once you grow up and you're like, oh, I'm so glad I was fed really good food instead of bologna sandwiches. And that's one thing I'm so grateful about, that my parents, the legacy that they leave us is that love for the culture.
Mimi Vu was born in Flint, Michigan, in a Vietnamese family of 4 children. Her father worked as a doctor and her mother was a pharmacist. As a kid, she was raised in a full Vietnamese culture and inherited all the good deeds from both cultures. Following the family tradition, Mimi followed the science and math path and was in dental schools until she realized that career wasn't going to fulfill her life. She decided to do masters in international policies and development and worked for the International AIDS Vaccine Initiative before moving to Vietnam.
So what happened that brought you back to Vietnam then?
So I was planning on getting my PhD in international
Really?
development.
Another
Yes.
degree?
And, but I knew I needed international field experience. And at the time I was focusing, you know, development world where Africa is like the place to be, right?
That's the place to be.
So
for NGO, international
adventure,
NGO, right?
everything, right? So I was actually focusing on like kind of like the northern part of Africa, French-speaking Africa. And my father, all throughout, you know, graduate school and even afterwards, he was like, you should go back to Vietnam. Why don't you go to Vietnam? You need to go back and help build up the country. Now you have the degree of the education. You need to go back and, you know, make sure the country is built up and wonderful and everything again.
That was your father's advice to you?
Well, advice, order.
That's an order.
It's your duty. Bổn phận của con. Yeah, so you know, I told my father, I said, okay, fine, I'll send out applications, but whatever job I get first, that's where I'm going. You know, and I never imagined that within 2 weeks of sending out my CV, I would get a 2-line job offer.
Okay.
I didn't even do an interview.
Wow.
To work for East Meets West Foundation in Da Nang. No idea where Da Nang was. You know, it was like, okay, it's in Vietnam. We had a Skype chat, Q&A, you know, for about like 10 minutes, and that was it. And they were my first NGO, and I asked them, when do you need me? And they said, yesterday. So,
wow. We've been waiting for somebody like you for a long time, I believe.
Yeah, and it was so I was like, okay. So, I don't know, maybe 6 weeks later, I subletted my apartment in New York and shipped the rest of my stuff home to...
Things just happened so quick.
Michigan, and showed up in Da Nang. And I remember my cousins and my relatives were like, okay, so you know, Da Nang is different than
was like
what you
13
know.
years ago?
It was almost 14 years ago.
14 years ago, so Da Nang was not like today.
No. And also, but I think they were also more worried about the accent.
True,
because
true.
we speak like I have a weird
Northern.
pre-war northern accent, right? And they're like, it's different. I said, oh, it's fine. I speak Vietnamese. And
Did people speak English back then in Da Nang?
some of my colleagues did, yes. But you know, I'm like, I have to speak Vietnamese. No, I'm here to speak Vietnamese. And you know, my colleagues are from like Quang Tri, Quảng Nam, Quang Ngãi.
That's just thick accents right
And
there.
we can't understand each other because I'm also using outdated vocabulary,
see.
which I did not realize. And also the regional differences, you know? So, I'm like, I don't know how to say bowl. So I would say chan, bát, tô, all in one. And I'm like, do you have a thìa muỗng? You know, like I guess
Try many different options.
Yeah, throw everything out there.
Wait, you didn't finish your PhD, did you?
I never went back to do it. No. So my plan was to stay in Vietnam for 2 years and then go back to do my PhD. And I mean, I'm
That's what's the
still
plan.
here,
But then,
so.
what happened that make you change your plan?
A couple of things. Number one is the work has always been really good here. So I'm still useful here. There's still things for me to do. There's still ways for me to have a positive impact. I hate winter, so the weather here is really good. The food is really good. The lifestyle, you get used to, you can have a very good lifestyle here. And work-wise, I realized that I didn't need my PhD in order to continue my career. For me, doing my PhD is just because I'm curious and I want to learn more. But I have no interest in becoming a professor or like an official researcher, so it's not needed for that. But I can learn on my own, and if I ever do go back to do my PhD, it's just because I'm curious and I would like to study more because I'm sort of nerdy.
Yeah, so maybe this is the place that you belong to.
Yeah, and and I always reassess. I'm like, are there other places I can go? And am I done with Vietnam? Is Vietnam done with me yet? And I think there's still opportunity here. There's still more things that I can do. There's still more ways where I can be of service. And I'm still happy living here. Living here brings me a lot of joy. So and especially now with the state of the world, there's absolutely no reason for me.
So good to be in Vietnam now.
In Vietnam, Mimi has found numerous opportunities to develop her career in nonprofit companies and organizations. She moved from working as a development and information officer for East Meets West Foundations to Director of Development for Vina Capital Foundation. Thanks to that, her experience has been expanding in various fields, including fundraising and partnership strategies, public-private partnerships, as well as diaspora engagement. In 2013, by starting to work for Pacific Links Foundations, she added in her expertise her knowledge of human trafficking, modern slavery, and irregular migrations, and gender equality.
Another unexpected chapter in your life. You want to talk about the human trafficking thing?
Yes.
What happened?
I was with Vina Capital Foundation for about 5 years. And then at the time I wanted to do consulting. Because I wanted freedom in my schedule. I practice yoga and meditation.
Yeah.
So the co-founder of Pacific Links Foundation, which is an anti-trafficking organization I worked for, she had approached me and said, we need someone to help do fundraising and advocacy and all these things. And I said, no, I don't want a full-time job. I'll help out or volunteer. And then, I don't know, somehow volunteering became working for them, as a consultant, but practically full-time. So I became their director of advocacy and partnerships. And so what I did there was really take what was, an organization that was dedicated to supporting victims of trafficking and trying to prevent trafficking by looking at what the development issues are, like lack of education, gender inequity, but then also bringing on more partners and supporters, and also advocating for the cause globally, because that's what trafficking is. It starts in the villages and then it goes international immediately, right? Because they're sold overseas.
Where are the victims taken?
So for Vietnam, majority of total victims, about 80%, are sold into China. And then about 80% of those victims are women and girls. And they're sold primarily as brides or prostitutes. I mean, this is a direct consequence of, almost 40 years of China's one-child policy, which has created one of the largest gender imbalances in the world. So, statistics range, but I've read anywhere between 30 to 60 million missing women in China. So if you over that time, and so that's the same amount of men who are of marriageable age that cannot get married because they just don't have the supply.
Okay.
China's similar to Vietnam, and then it's an East Asian Confucius country where you need to get married and have children for the next generation, because those are the kids who are going to take care of you when you're older, continue the bloodline, et cetera, right? So when they don't have that supply, they take from the market opens up. And what are the countries that have the most available product? Product meaning women and girls of childbearing age. First is Vietnam. Wow. Right? Because we have a common border, porous border, similar-ish cultures, so all that intersects. And so when you work to prevent this kind of trafficking from happening, you have to address those root causes, which are development issues.
Data from the Ministry of Public Security reveal that Vietnam records 300 to 400 trafficking cases each year with around 1,000 victims and arrests 500 individuals. The United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime estimated that global human trafficking makes an annual profit of 150 billion US dollar, approximately the GDP of a developing country. As an expert in anti-trafficking, in addition to field trips assisting victims of human trafficking, Mimi Vu often publishes her analysis and has interviews with the media.
Welcome, Mimi Wu. Thank you for joining our broadcast this morning.
To Mimi Vu, who's an anti-trafficking expert.
I spoke to Mimi Vu, who's an independent anti-trafficking advocate.
Based in Ho Chi Minh City, and she joins us live now. Mimi, many thanks for your time.
Why would people risk their lives to leave Vietnam?
Well, first of all, they don't believe that they're risking their lives. Vietnam is one of the top source countries in the region for trafficking victims.
The sums of money required to take this are huge.
They remortgaged their house in order to choose her and send her abroad to the UK to have a better life. Lower tiers, you pay less money, and then you get what is the 5-star gold class VIP service.
But the burden of debt repayment is on the person who goes.
What are we seeing and what still needs to be done?
To really, really end this problem is that you have to look at what are the root causes, what are the influencing factors that make someone vulnerable to being trafficked.
What can we do now to prevent those to happen?
Trafficking is the worst side of globalization. It's trade, it's market, it's a business.
Yep.
But it is a horrible, horrible business that takes advantage of the most vulnerable and does not compensate them properly. And it's slavery. And so with globalization means more airline routes open up, more methods of travel, different business visas, different ways where you can get into the UK. So it's no longer just one route, but it's different routes. And the thing about traffickers and smugglers is that they are among the most creative business people I've ever come across, ever. And they don't have to consider humanity or how they treat their product, which is people.
Yeah.
It's just about how do I maximize my profit margins.
Do you have to make trips to the places where human traffickers take the victims to? Please share with us some of the experience.
So within Asia, I would work at the borders because Pacific Links had shelters on the Chinese border and the Cambodian border. So we don't go into, we work with law enforcement to facilitate rescues, but the rescues are done by police because I can't go into China. But in Europe, I would go to, I still do, go to the Vietnamese diaspora, the markets, the chợ, in like Prague and Berlin and Warsaw and in France and along the border between Czech Republic and Germany. And that's where not only life in these diaspora, the VQ communities take place, but also this trade takes place. And then go visit the Vietnamese migrant camps. There used to be one called Thành phố Việt Nam in northern France, in Ang.
Northern France.
I still interview Vietnamese migrants who have been caught by police and put in detention centers. And I still provide interview support and expert testimony for Vietnamese who are caught up in the criminal legal system in the UK in order to support their case that they are not drug traffickers, but actually victims of trafficking and slavery. So I interview a lot of Vietnamese, and all throughout different parts of their journey. And this is a way for me to be able to piece together certain trends, like how things are changing on the ground. I ask everyone I talk to, why would you do this? And they always say, it's for the family, hising cho gia đình, And I'm like, how can you think that? Because here, again, GDP growth, 7% or almost 7% year on year out. You know that Vietnam, when the economic crises were happening in Europe and like Spain and Portugal and France, all of these expats were coming to Vietnam because Vietnam was the land of opportunity and still is. This is where you have 65% of the country is under the age of 40, 45. This is the growth market.
The Vietnamese government has had many solutions to prevent trafficking, but the situation is complicated since the traffickers cleverly target vulnerable victims.
Các đối tượng lợi dụng cái sự nhẹ dạ cả tin của phụ nữ, của trẻ em, đặc biệt là những cái người ở vùng dân tộc thiểu số. Thông thường thì các cái đối tượng chúng tìm cách để tiếp cận phụ nữ và trẻ em ở những cái vùng này, bởi vì do cái nhận thức của phụ nữ và trẻ em, đặc biệt là ở những cái vùng sâu vùng xa rất là hạn chế. Chúng lừa là môi giới đi lấy chồng ở nước ngoài này, chúng lừa là đi xuất khẩu lao động để tìm những cái cơ hội để tìm kiếm những cái công việc rất là nhẹ nhàng nhưng mà đem lại những cái nguồn thu nhập rất là lớn. Thì đánh vào cái việc khó khăn trong tìm công việc cũng như là vẽ ra những cái hoàn cảnh, những cái cuộc sống rất là tốt đẹp ở một cái nơi xứ người.
Many would argue that voluntary migration differs from trafficking, but there's a thin line between them. In many cases, migrants crossed the border voluntarily, but fell into the hands of smugglers and became modern slaves or were forced into prostitution. An example is the tragic story of 39 people who died while trying to cross the border into the UK in 2019. They believed in what their smuggler promised about a better life overseas.
They don't think it's a risk. They're not really aware of what actually happens or could happen. We're talking, 20, 30, 40 years of tradition and culture now where Vietnamese have gone overseas, worked or established new lives overseas, and then sent money back home.
In 2013, the nonprofit Pacific Links Foundations that Mimi worked for developed a program called Factory Awareness to counter trafficking for businesses, managers, and workers. The program trains managers on national and international laws, as well as the tactics that smugglers often use to lure workers at factories and industrial parks. The program teaches workers what human trafficking is and how to report it to the authority.
What are some of the specific projects that you have done to help stop human trafficking in Vietnam?
We did a partnership with Olivy, the ad agency, and this clothing factory called Unavailable. And what we did was we created these clothing tags. You know the washing tags in the shirts? So they're in the t-shirts, and then Unavailable donated the tags in the t-shirts, thousands. And the tags themselves, though, say in Vietnamese and in Chinese, or Vietnamese and English, I was taken here against my will. I am a trafficking victim. Please take me to the police or the embassy. And there's phone numbers of the Zalo, WhatsApp, all that. That came about because for the Vietnamese trafficking survivors who escaped on their own, they tell stories over and over again about how they can't speak Chinese, right? And so they see a police officer or someone in the street, and they would just shout, Vietnam, Vietnam. Yeah. They had no way to communicate. So this was like, okay, this is a great idea. It's in the t-shirt, they can rip it out, and that's a way for them to communicate. But what we did with the shirts was use it as a prevention tool. So we would do big outreach events at like all the chợ dân tộc, all the ethnic minority markets up in the northern border. So the incentive, here's your free T-shirt, but they have to listen to, this is what you do, and in explaining to them the tag and the T-shirt, we're explaining to them how you can get trafficked and how to prevent yourself from getting trafficked. And if you wanted another T-shirt, you would have to turn to the person next to you and explain to that person, okay, this is how you keep your daughter, your granddaughter safe, yourself safe from being trafficked. Tear out this tag, read it, here's a pamphlet, take it home to them. And so that was really wonderful because it was a grassroots, very, very grassroots mass activity that was in partnership with private sector that used creativity, local authorities, we were partnered with them as well. And so it was a really wonderful way to look at, and the local community leaders too. And it was, we did it in Vietnamese and in Hmong language, we had translators, we did in Thai language, Giao Đỏ language, so that was such a wonderful project. It's a very low tech way of distributing information in a meaningful way that they'll remember, that people will remember. Another project that was really cool was that was geared towards the young men and boys who are at risk for trafficking to the UK, so mainly in like Nghệ An and Hà Tĩnh.
Okay, yeah.
And you know, these are between the ages of like 16 to 30, right? So, you know, boys, young men, they're like, I'm invincible. They don't listen to anybody, you know? Who are you gonna listen to? Your parents? Teachers? No, right? So I'm like, who will they listen to? Oh, they love football.
Okay,
right?
yeah.
And
big passion in Vietnam.
Very, very passionate in Vietnam. And so I was able to secure some funding from the UK government, from the Home Office, to fund an ad campaign, PSA campaign involving football.
Yeah.
And then get Olivia again to do the creative for free. So they created the ad campaign for free, and then they got, you know, the filming and everything as well. And then we were able to partner with La Liga,
nice.
the Spanish Premier League. You know, I was in Spain filming, teaching the players how to speak Vietnamese, which was an experience. And they created this wonderful ad directed at the Vietnamese boys in Vietnam on how to stay safe and you know, stay in your country.
Great
so,
project.
Yeah, it's creative.
Yeah,
so,
creative. So what should be done to end the root of human trafficking?
You have to focus on the development issues, and that will solve a lot of many other issues in Vietnam. And if you focus
Education
on resolving
and development,
if you focus on resolving the root development issues that push the trafficking trade, that automatically will help Vietnam develop into a better country and create a better future for Vietnam.
After working for Pacific Links Foundation for 6 years, Mimi Vu and her friend founded Race Partners, a consulting company on corporate social responsibility, or CSR. CSR is a relatively new term in Vietnam. It deals with the social and environmental responsibilities of an enterprise. Race Partners' mission is to help businesses enhance that element in a strategic, forward-thinking way, because Mimi Vu believes that social and environmental factors have a direct impact on attracting investment.
Mình phải tiên chí mình phải làm là cái xã hội với lại môi trường mạnh luôn. Nếu mà xã hội với môi trường mạnh thì kinh tế mới mạnh. Okay? Nếu mà xã hội với lại môi trường yếu, kinh tế sẽ yếu. Cái đó là rõ rồi. Và nhà đầu tư từ nước ngoài, cái này đây là the main, cái này quan trọng nhất cho họ. Okay? Nếu mà họ đầu tư vào Việt Nam, họ muốn yên chí là cái đầu tư của họ sẽ mạnh và lâu dài. Nếu mà xã hội yếu, môi trường yếu, kinh tế, cái đầu tư của họ sẽ yếu.
A growing business is not only one that follows the owner's strategy and vision, but also based on the vision and value of each employee. Race Partners and Mimi Vu has developed an effective consulting model that helps the employees of their clients realize their value, which they and their companies can contribute to society.
More and more, people want to work for companies that have a soul, that are not only interested in making money and sort of using staff, but finding ways to build a team and do something interesting. And so that also includes, you know, doing something in the community.
As a company, there is a responsibility to give back to the society. And that's why EasyLand wanted a long-term program that helps facilitate that. Now that everyone in Vietnam has better living standard, I think when they go to work, they're looking more than just a job. They're looking for making impact in a fulfilling position. We build that into the company's value because then everyone share the same, as I say, mission and knowledge and understand the importance of doing that.
Many businesses have been advised by Mimi Vu and Race Partners on CSR because more and more companies are aware of CSR's important role in sustainable development. Every firm has its essential ethical and legal responsibilities. However, the most successful enterprises would demonstrate commitments that balance the needs of businesses with the needs of the community and the surrounding environment.
what is the mindset of corporate leaders about doing CSR, and why is there the need of applying CSR right now?
So traditionally, I think this is where Vietnam is hopefully will evolve, and this is what our work in working with companies and NGOs we're trying to do. Right now, the view of CSR is quite traditional, where it's like, oh, you know,
charity and
charity,
stuff.
community, you know, go for a day and paint a school and then you're home.
This happens a lot.
And it's usually headed up by the marketing person or like HR or something, and it's not actually incorporated into your business plan. From a business standpoint, you don't actually get to attain all of the benefits that are available to you as a company if you just focus on this very narrow definition of CSR. And from an NGO standpoint, they just think, you know, it's just another way for them to get money, right? It's very much this, I call it the Oliver Twist thing, like, please, sir, give me money, you know, di xin tiền, right?
Yep.
Instead of presenting themselves.
General
exactly.
view of the public about NGO.
But instead of what they should be doing is presenting themselves as very important entities that should be invested in, partners that they should be invested in order to make the financial or business investment more successful.
And more sustainable, yeah.
More sustainable, more successful. NGOs don't view themselves in that way yet. And so we're really like...
And your job is to help
everyone.
rethink.
I'm like, please listen to us. Okay, this is very... So Van and I kind of stand in the middle, right?
Okay.
And I think it's a good thing that we've been here a long time. We're Việt kiều, so we know how the Vietnamese mentality works. We're also Midwestern American, and so we're very direct speakers.
Yep.
And so
it's a good combination.
Yeah, so we're very smiley, you know. We're like, do this, you know, and then we have the experience.
How successful are you in terms of changing the mindset right now?
It's, you know, người Việt can be very buôn, right? So it takes time.
Yeah.
It takes time, and again, it's really about proof. You need to show them it works, and so with every activity we do, with every, and they see the reaction or how things can change, with every, you know, meeting that we have. So it's just really it's very grassroots almost. Yep. You know, you have to be there every step of the way until they're like, okay, I get it, I see it. But that's fine, because that's what we love doing anyway.
So that's your mission right now, helping businesses in Vietnam?
Businesses and NGOs and philanthropists, and, you know, working with government as well, to evolve their way of thinking and their way of working together, the way of partnering together.
Similar to Mimi Vu, there are more and more young Việt kiều coming back to Vietnam from overseas and seeing the opportunities here. It is estimated that Ho Chi Minh City welcomes 30,000 young people like that each year who come back to research business opportunities or start building their careers in Vietnam in many different fields.
Mình làm việc đi về Việt Nam cũng 10 năm nay, và mỗi lần mình về mình thấy cái xu hướng phát triển của nước Việt Nam. Mình đam mê về giáo dục, và mình nghĩ là cái đam mê của mình có thể giúp phát triển được người trẻ Việt Nam và cái kinh tế của Việt Nam. Vì vậy mình mới về đây.
All of my friends here, a lot of them are overseas Vietnamese, and we've all found a place and a time for us to have a very successful and happy and fulfilling career in work, but we also make sure to do a lot of volunteer work outside so that we can always make sure to give back to the community that we're a part of.
I moved here because I saw how Vietnam is changing so quickly and is becoming more dynamic. You know, the young people are really inspiring. As a filmmaker, I'm always looking for different types of stories, and so it was really interesting to kind of see the stories that were coming out of particularly Vietnam compared to where I was living, which is New York City. So most people think, oh, New York City is such an exciting place, but actually I found Vietnam much more exciting.
Young Việt kiều who want to contribute to their hometown like Mimi Vu and Vân Ly have found a way to use their intellect in solving development issues for Vietnam.
One of the primary objectives when we set up the business was that whatever work we do contributes to the development of Vietnam. This is a great country. We love this country. And we didn't want to do any projects that were superficial, that didn't have real impact. That was just a way for example, companies or nonprofits to show off.
Mình thấy hồi mình về đây là mỗi ngày mình có mục đích sống là mình giúp một người Việt Nam để học thêm một từ tiếng Anh mỗi ngày. Thì mình thấy là mình đạt được cái đó mỗi ngày là mình có ý nghĩa để mình sống và mình phát triển kiến thức và phát triển cá nhân.
I love how Vietnam is developing rapidly.
There's a sense of home because you're Vietnamese.
Chào cô Mai.
Dạ, chào cô.
Cô cho cháu một bát cô sáng hôm nay.
Dạ được cô, dạ cô không giá nhiều chanh.
Đúng rồi.
Mimi lives in this alley for 12 years and she's been eating Mrs. Mai hủ tiếu for that many years. Mimi thinks this is the most delicious hủ tiếu in Vietnam that she ever eaten. She indulging in these moments of her daily life, and perhaps they are what makes her feel connected to her motherland.
Talking about the overseas Vietnamese, I know you have an idea of the bridges. Could you kind of talk more about it? Connecting people?
Yeah, one of the worries that we have that's shared by Hao Chun, who's one of our clients and the co-founder of VTVgo, is what will happen to VTVgo, the next VTVgo generations, who are born of parents who were born overseas.
Yeah, that's second
or third
Way
generation.
farther.
You know, like the thing about overseas Vietnamese, especially in the U.S., is that they're quite good at integrating into greater society, and they have their diaspora communities. You know, the little Saigons in Orange County and Houston and all that. What we worry about is that will be enough for them. Oh, I go to Phu Plap Tha and eat pho, and that's Vietnamese
my Vietnam
culture.
right there.
Exactly.
That's it. I don't need to go
And
back.
we don't want that. We want to continuous, even after Vietnam, develops and does wonderful, all that stuff. We still want VTVgo, not just in the U.S., but in Czech Republic, in Germany, in
around the world.
France, all around the world, to still have concrete ways of not just coming back and visiting Vietnam as a tourist, but ways to explore their identity, and from a personal standpoint, and also from a professional standpoint, because it's a very special thing, I think, to be VTVgo. What we're trying to do is with the Bridges program. Is that it's a 3 to 4 month program, but what we will do is put out an application call, very detailed application call for VTVgo all over the world, young, between the ages of say 24 and 30, hopefully ones who have never been to Vietnam or don't really have close ties here, but are curious, and they've been out of school and have been working for at least a couple of years, so they're professionals, and then match them with partner companies here, who through their participation will benefit from having a worker who has international experience, knows somewhat about Asian culture and has good educational background, and can bring new ideas or new ways of thinking, new ways of working to the work environment. So aside from that, the idea is that we'll have 4 days a week full-time of working, and then 1 day a week will be saved for their personal project. So when they fill out their application, they need to talk about what they want to explore as a project in Vietnam. So say you're like, well, I'm a computer engineer, and then, okay, we set you up with a tech company. And they're like, but I also like photography and I like pho. So I want to go around the country and photograph like old ladies making pho. Okay, and then turn it into an exhibition. You have 1 day a week during your time here to work on that, because it's also a way to explore the rest of the country and the culture. We will take them on field trips. I'm definitely, we're taking them out into the countryside. I want them to understand the different parts of Vietnam, the different accents. I want them to go through what I had to go through. And what we want is for them to go away, go back to their countries, having left a part of themselves in Vietnam, and always having that connection, but then also thinking from a practical standpoint, actually, you know what? There are opportunities here. I have these skills, I have this network, I made all these connections when I was in Vietnam. Here's how I can contribute to the country. And so we want that to continue, because I think having always this VTVgo involvement is good, not just for Vietnam and the Vietnamese here, but also for the diaspora communities overseas. And we just don't want it to go away. We don't want people to lose.
I know, right?
You know,
so many things to offer.
Yeah, more than just food. You know, there's so many more things, right?
This is a true Vietnam right
yeah.
here.
And then also these people then go out and become better ambassadors for Vietnam and Vietnamese culture.
What would you say to like top 3 things you would say to a upcoming Viet Kiều friends who consider moving back to Vietnam just like you before? What would you say to them?
I would say this is the safest country in the world for them to be in now. So,
yeah, especially now.
And it also is the country with the best opportunities, period. I mean, I study development, I work in development. This is something that I know, you know, that this is from a statistical standpoint, from financial, from a human development standpoint, this is the top country to be in. We're in very strange times right now. And in terms of opportunity and making an impact, this is the place to be right now. This is the time to be, if they can get in. If they can get in. So.
Thank you so much for sharing. Good luck with everything.
Thank you.
Yeah, stay safe. Okay. Take care. That's
you.
The story of Mimi Vu. Well, life can give you a lot of ups and downs, unexpected turns, but just go with the flow, and it might lead you to where you want to be and doing what you really want to do. For Mimi, it's doing meaningful work for Vietnam, help growing the people and the businesses. And for overseas Vietnamese who considers coming back to Vietnam, this is the place of opportunity, and Vietnam has so much to offer. Thank you so much for watching. That's it for Talk Vietnam today. I'll see you next time. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.